You've probably seen it yourself. Someone you know, smart, successful, maybe even highly educated, insisting that men can get pregnant as well. Or a well-respected academic claiming that questioning the health risks of morbid obesity is fat-phobic. On the religious side, you find highly devout followers, even engineers, doctors, or PhDs, who believe in some really silly things like in some part of India, where drinking cow urine can purify the soul. And you stop and think, what? How can someone this smart believe something so irrational and stupid? It feels like the world's gone mad, but not in the way we expect. Because it's not just the uneducated or the gullible who fall for wild ideas. Sometimes the most irrational claims come from the brightest minds. But why do some of the smartest people believe things that seem, frankly, ridiculous? Are they just losing it? Or is there something deeper? Something about how human brains actually work? In this video, I will discuss the psychology behind it, how biases, identity, and emotions twist even sharp minds into believing nonsense. From woke dogmas to denial of basic biology, I will break down the science of why no one, not even the smartest among us, is safe from irrational belief. Intelligence is often seen as a safeguard against gullibility, but psychological research paints a far more paradoxical picture. Being smart doesn't make someone immune to irrational beliefs. It can actually make them more susceptible. The reason lies not in intellect itself, but in how our minds process information, through a complex maze of cognitive biases, mental shortcuts, and emotionally driven reasoning. Understanding these cognitive mechanisms reveals why high intelligence can coexist with poor judgment, and sometimes even amplify it. Cognitive biases are systematic ways in which our brains simplify information processing, often at the expense of logic. Take confirmation bias, the tendency to favor information that supports what we already believe, while ignoring or discounting contradictory evidence. This bias affects everyone, but smarter individuals are often better at justifying their beliefs with selective evidence. This turns intelligence into a double-edged sword. Instead of being used to uncover truth, it's deployed to defend pre-existing views with sophisticated reasoning. Psychologist Keith Stanovich coined the term disrationalia to describe this phenomenon. Smart people making irrational decisions despite having the cognitive tools to know better. He argues that traditional IQ tests measure abstract problem solving and memory, but not rationality, which involves open-mindedness, critical thinking, and the willingness to revise beliefs. To capture this gap, Stanovich proposed a separate metric, the rationality quotient, RQ. His research shows that even highly intelligent individuals can fail basic tests of reasoning if they're emotionally or ideologically invested in a belief. Further studies using the cognitive reflection test, CRT, a set of simple yet deceptive logic problems, highlight this disconnect. Those who score higher on the CRT are generally better at resisting intuitive but wrong answers. But when faced with ideologically sensitive topics, their higher cognitive abilities are often used to reinforce bias. In Dan Kahan's research, individuals with strong CRT performance actually showed more ideological polarization, not less. They didn't overcome bias. They outperformed others in defending it. As one researcher put it, smart people know more ways to explain away facts that contradict their beliefs. The early 20th century eugenics movement in the West offers another cautionary tale. Nobel laureates and leading intellectuals advocated for forced sterilizations and racial hierarchies, misusing early genetics and flawed statistics. Despite their education, cultural and economic biases led them astray. Science eventually discredited these views, but for decades, elite thinkers lent legitimacy to deeply flawed ideas. This phenomenon is compounded by the bias blind spot, the tendency to see cognitive biases in others while denying them in ourselves. Intelligent people often believe they're less biased because they know about biases, yet studies show they're just as prone to them, sometimes more so. This illusion of objectivity can make smart individuals overconfident in their judgments and dismissive of correction. Another factor is that humans are naturally cognitive misers. Despite having high brain power, we often prefer mental shortcuts and gut reactions over slow, reflective thinking. Intelligent individuals may ace exams but still fall for basic logic traps in daily life, such as trick questions or fake news, because they apply their reasoning selectively or lazily. As research shows, many clever people answer misleading questions quickly and incorrectly, bypassing analytic thought. Without deliberate reflection, intelligence is like a powerful engine without a steering wheel. In sum, the reason smart people believe in irrational things isn't a lack of brain power, it's how that brain power is used. Cognitive biases, motivated reasoning, emotional needs, and the illusion of objectivity all conspire to bend intelligence towards self-justification rather than truth. Without active effort to think critically, question assumptions, and reflect honestly, even the brightest minds can fall prey to foolish ideas. And this tendency can arise within ourselves due to one major reason, which I am going to discuss now. Intelligence alone doesn't shield us from irrational beliefs, especially when social forces and tribal loyalties come into play. Humans are deeply social creatures, and our beliefs are often shaped more by the need to belong than by a commitment to objective truth. Even the most intellectually gifted minds can fall prey to groupthink, ideological echo chambers, and emotionally charged narratives when those ideas serve a powerful social or identity-based function. At the heart of this lies tribal thinking, the tendency to define ourselves by the groups we belong to and align our beliefs accordingly. Political parties, religious affiliations, academic fields, activist movements, and even online subcultures all provide a shared identity and worldview. Once a belief is embedded in that identity, challenging it can feel like a betrayal, not just of an idea, but of one's community. Psychologist Dan Kahan describes this as identity protective cognition. Our reasoning faculties are unconsciously hijacked to defend the values of our tribe. The smarter someone is, the more skilled they may become at rationalizing flawed ideas that preserve their standing within the group. Group dynamics reinforce this effect. When individuals surround themselves with like-minded people, online or offline, they tend to become more extreme in their views. This is group polarization, a well-documented psychological phenomenon where consensus among peers emboldens stronger, often more radical positions. Social media algorithms worsen the issue by creating echo chambers, filtering out dissent, and feeding users content that reinforces what they already believe. Over time, fringe theories or dubious claims can become normalized within a community simply through repetition and mutual affirmation. This repetition leads to the illusory truth effect. The more often you hear something, the more believable it feels. Add in social pressure and a fear of exclusion, and it's easy to see how even a brilliant mind might cling to irrational ideas. Challenging a group's consensus can carry serious personal costs: ostracism, ridicule, loss of status. As a result, intelligent individuals may double down on faulty beliefs not out of ignorance, but out of a desire to maintain social bonds and avoid shame. Emotional reasoning is closely intertwined with this tribal impulse. People often adopt beliefs not because they're true, but because they satisfy emotional needs, comfort, identity, moral clarity, or a sense of control. After traumatic events like 9/11 or during health crises, conspiracy theories flourish among educated and uneducated alike. These beliefs offer simple explanations in a chaotic world, and belonging to a group that shares them provides psychological safety. Even Nobel laureates aren't immune. Some have endorsed pseudoscientific cures or fringe ideas because they align emotionally with hope or personal values. Authority figures amplify the dynamic. If a respected leader, whether a professor, pastor, influencer, or politician, endorses an idea, group members are more likely to accept it without critical evaluation. Classic psychology experiments like Milgram's obedience studies or Ash's conformity tests show how powerful this pressure can be. Today, that influence is turbocharged by social media, where likes, shares, and public validation reward conformity and punish dissent. The fad acceptance movement is another modern example. While reducing stigma is a valid goal, critics argue that some advocates overlook clear medical risks. Intelligent supporters sometimes selectively cite studies that favor their values, framing scientific nuance as moral clarity. In the end, smart people believe in stupid things, not because they're irrational, but because they're human. There is another reason why people embrace this kind of foolish idea without even realizing it, which I will now discuss. One of the most ironic pitfalls of intelligence is overconfidence. The smarter people are, the more likely they are to overestimate what they know and underestimate what they don't. A skilled software engineer might assume they're qualified to judge epidemiological data. A lawyer might believe their analytical training gives them insight into climate science. This misplaced confidence creates what psychologists call the illusion of explanatory depth. We think we understand something far better than we actually do. This isn't just a problem of ignorance, it's a problem of ego. Intelligent people often derive part of their identity from being the smart one, and that makes it harder to admit gaps in their knowledge. They may reject expert consensus, not because they've deeply studied the field, but because trusting someone else threatens their sense of autonomy or superiority. And here's the twist. The more intellectually sophisticated someone is, the more persuasive their rationalizations become. They can dress up emotional or tribal beliefs in elegant arguments, believing they're being objective. That's the real danger. Intelligence used not to seek truth, but to win debates, preserve status, or avoid cognitive discomfort. Being smart doesn't protect against error. Sometimes it just makes being wrong feel more justified. This phenomenon is closely related to the Dunning-Kruger effect, a concept we should all be familiar with to better recognize our own blind spots. I've provided a link in the description, and it will also appear on the end screen of this video if you'd like to learn more. Now, let's move on to the final and most important chapter of this video. We often treat intelligence as a catch-all virtue. If someone's brilliant, they must have good judgment. But in reality, IQ and actual wisdom don't always go hand in hand. Cognitive science now shows that what shields people from bad ideas isn't just how smart they are, but how they think. Critical thinking, open-mindedness, and domain-specific knowledge matter more than raw horsepower. You can have a genius IQ and still believe nonsense if you've never learned how to evaluate evidence, question assumptions, or admit when you're wrong. In fact, studies show that intelligent people are better at defending flawed beliefs because they can construct more elaborate arguments. When beliefs are tied to identity or emotion, even the brightest minds will selectively filter information and double down. Think of it this way. Intelligence is a powerful engine. But without a reliable steering system, humility, skepticism, and knowledge, it can drive straight into a wall. Just like modern PhDs pushing pseudoscience, brilliant minds can veer off course when they confuse cleverness with correctness. Even science itself can be ideological when culture enters. Consider how controversial debates over race and IQ continue to divide experts. Some scholars emphasize environmental factors, others focus on small genetic influences. Both sides have intelligent champions who often cherry-pick studies to support moral or political causes. The reasoning toolset is neutral. The goal guides its use. The real mark of intelligence isn't just speed or logic. It's knowing the limits of your own mind. It is like when Carl Richards once said, "Overconfidence is a very serious problem. If you don't think it affects you, that's probably because you're overconfident."